We'll call our meeting to order. I thank you for taking time out of your busy, warm Monday to come join us at our meeting. With that, we'll go with roll call. Mr. Kirshner.
All board members are present.
Wonderful. If you'd please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Seeing that we do not have anybody wishing to participate in public participation, we'll move right into consent. We have a motion on the table to approve consent.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
We'd like to recognize to the board that we have Nikki Rash with us tonight. She's the new assistant principal of Orchard Park. She's with her lovely family, husband and 2 children and puppy. And we have Mrs. Turner with us tonight, too, as Orchard Park principal. Thank you for being here this evening. And Nikki, congratulations. We're very excited to have you part of the administrative leadership team. Congratulations.
Moving into action, our first action item, non-bargaining group salary and benefits for 2016-17. And with that, we'll turn to Mr. McMichael.
Thank you. Our recommendation with regard to our non-teaching groups is for a salary increase to their salary schedules of 1.5%. In addition to that, these employees would receive an increment if they were otherwise entitled to receive that. In addition to that, a 1.5% salary stipend for employees that are rated as effective or highly effective, and those that would apply to.
Thank you, Mr. McMichael. May I get a motion on the table to approve consent?
Nope.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. May I get a motion on the table to approve non-bargaining group salary and benefits?
So moved.
Second. Discussion. Yes, Mrs. Niles?
Yes. I cannot support this particular action at this time, and I will read a statement. As the board and administration are already aware, I spent about 25 years as a teacher in this district. During that time, I also became involved in CCEA, which is the Teachers Association, as a building rep, vice president, president, and negotiator of the teacher contract. Our bargaining team may have negotiated for the teachers, but all staff members benefited. I realized that when negotiations dragged on, no staff member received additional dollars in his or her salary other than the increment until the contract was settled. The raise was then retroactive back to the beginning of the school year. Therefore, when it was suggested 3 years ago that staff outside of the bargaining unit receive their raises prior to July, I agreed, since they don't have the opportunity to negotiate a contract. However, the new bargaining law has a specific timeline attached to it, and technically the teacher contract should be settled by the end of December. Due to this timeline that now exists, all staff would receive a salary increase by January if we waited until teacher bargaining was over. I cannot support giving raises to staff outside the bargaining unit at this time. Since last year's salary increase resulted in 0.5% for teachers, I ask that we not follow this practice at this time. I am asking that the board negotiate with the teachers first this year. I am hopeful, as the eternal optimist that I am, that the new dollars we receive from the state will result in a fair salary increase for teachers and therefore all staff.
Thank you, Pam. Any other comments? Kathy?
There's several items that I've considered as I decided how to vote on this tonight. First of all, I think our primary cause is the students, and we have to strive to hire and retain the best educators and staff for our children. We will never be able to pay our teachers and staff what they're worth. Historically, as Pam has mentioned, all employees have received the same percentage as teachers, As negotiations would drag on, sometimes for years, all employees were denied a wage increase until settlement with teachers. Recent legislation has changed that. All contracts are decided by December of each year. Therefore, I believe we should go back to giving everyone the same rate. We have, in fact, given salary increases to our non-bargaining unit members prior to bargaining the past 3 years. Our administrators and support staff have stayed in line with neighboring districts, while our teachers have fallen even further behind by receiving less of a raise due to unfortunate circumstances beyond the board's control. I would like to see this board be proactive and work with the teachers to increase our beginning teacher salary to be more in line with neighboring districts. It may not be affecting our ability to hire the best teachers now, but in the future, I believe that earning as much as $5,000 more in the first 3 years, as well as annuity matches in neighboring districts, will in fact be detrimental to our hiring and retention of the best educators. If we give raises to others prior to negotiating with the teachers, we fail to give the teachers the opportunity to communicate their interests and their needs. Therefore, I will be voting no tonight for this increase, not because I do not value all employees, but in fact because I do value all employees.
Thank you, Kathy. Tricia?
I do have a couple questions, I guess maybe for clarification or I guess further dig on the numbers a little bit. In doing a little research, it looks like cost of living increase this past year was essentially flat. Is that what you found or know to be true?
I don't know the percentage offhand, but I would say it was around, I think it was about 1% or so,
1%,
maybe
okay.
between 1% and 2%.
Okay. Then, and I know that, oh, and can you tell me where, if this recommendation of 1.5% for the non-bargaining staff, where does that leave a projection for our 2017 cash balance? Are we in line with a similar percentage as we've been in the past year or two, let's say?
Yes, we don't anticipate that this increase would not require any use of cash balance. I think
Okay.
that's your question.
Because it's just staying with the new money.
Yes.
Cash balance remains as we know it. Okay. And thirdly, the legislature has, the last biennium, kind of adjusted a little bit for those districts that were faster growing, tend to be suburban, kind of a catch-up because they had been dinged a lot in the past several years as opposed to urban, not growing districts for the most part. And I know that Carmel Clay was one of the districts that actually benefited from some more dollars. Not a lot more dollars, but a little bit more dollars. Projecting that new money would be in the going forward, that they wouldn't decrease it and pull it back. That would continue to be our baseline, I guess. Without putting words in your mouth, I guess, is it true that added some funding but not huge amounts to give us like landfalls of money? It's still a pretty limited new money.
Well, I'd say a couple of things. One is that Carmel and all other school districts in the state, funding was cut for not just Carmel, but all districts in the state a number of years ago. And most of us, remember that. And we had Carmel had almost a $4 million shortfall, as I believe was a part of a $300 million shortfall across the state. And with the increase that Carmel received last year, and you're correct, Carmel, as one of the lowest funding per pupil districts in the state, did receive a higher percentage increase than most other districts. However, that increase, it wasn't a matter of restoring what was previously cut. We still are at a level that I believe is less than 2009 or 10. So I wouldn't want anybody to get the assumption that the money that was lost was made up. Now, we certainly appreciated getting the increase that we did get, and we were able to use those funds, about half of them, as a matter of fact, we used for additional staff and direct services to children, and about the other half was used for what I think was modest salary increases for our employees. And so that's how we used the money. But it certainly didn't make up, the lack of funding for the past several years.
Okay, thank you, that helped put some numbers in
And-
order in my head.
Tricia, just to clarify, the COLA, the cost of living increase was 1.7 for 2015. There was no increase to Social Security benefits, but the COLA was 1.7 for 2015.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, then we'll go ahead and take a vote at this point in time. All in favor of supporting the non-bargaining group salary and benefit increase for 2016 and 17 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
We have a 3-2. Do you have that, Doug? Yes. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda, on a lighter note, change orders for Carmel High School cross-country lockers.
Yes, this is a change order a deduct change order for this project. It's a closing out of an allowance. The project's now complete, and so the deduct is $45,102.
Thank you, Roger. May I get a motion on the table to approve the deduct change orders?
So moved.
Second? Second. Discussion? As always, we appreciate when you
That's right. Thank you.
spend less. All in favor? Aye. Next, we have the adoption of policy 3132, reduction in force. Pam?
It's taking a minute to come up.
Okay, that's okay.
I know we, okay.
Yes, it is.
Reduction in force? Due to a change in a court case that happened last year, we had to change the wording in this particular policy to reflect those changes. So we added number 6, contract cancellations for statutory reasons. Then we have a whole paragraph on teachers who can be RIF'd, and it has to do with professional teachers who have been in the area for a while, or it's sort of like tenure, the old days when we had tenure. The established teachers must stay over a professional teacher in that same licensed area. So we needed to change that wording due to the court case.
Thank you, Pam. Making a motion on the table to adopt policy 3132 with the changes that the policy committee recommended.
I move for adoption.
Second?
Second.
Discussion?
I just want to, I guess, refresh my recollection. These were all read for the first time in the 5 that we're doing in April 25th, and there were 2 more policies that we approved in May.
That is correct.
Okay.
The reason we had a delay on these, the Teachers Association had an opportunity to look at all of these as well and offer feedback to the administration, which then in turn brought feedback to the policy committee. And so we had a gap. So we were bringing these back to us for a final.
Those would be the 3,000s.
Yes. Any other questions or comments? Wonderful. All in favor of supporting 3132, reduction in force, recall, and certificated staff, signify by saying aye. 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 Thank you. Next.
Excuse me, policy 3142, again, is a cancellation of a teacher contract, and this went to discussion. Rationale, the wording in the last paragraph has been changed to reflect the fact that this policy references all teacher contracts. So the wording in the last paragraph was a little deceptive as we read it. So we just changed it and just took it out and said, when canceling a teaching contract, and just left it at that.
Thank you, Pam. I get a motion on the table to adopt policy 323142, cancellation of a teaching contract with the recommended changes. Second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Next, we have policy 3231, outside activities of staff. Pam?
Again, this is a 3,000 policy, which goes for the teachers, and again, had to be discussed. This is, a majority of this policy is in administrative guidelines, so we took out quite a bit of the language due to that fact. It is recommended to remove the administrative guideline language within the policy and create a standalone administrative guideline. The code, which pertains to ghost employment, does not reference outside activities, and it is suggested that it also be eliminated. So we just added the sentence, "The school board directs the superintendent to administer guidelines," again referencing the administrative guidelines, "to employees, personnel, interests, activities, and associations in order to prevent conflicts of interest within the district." And then we have, it is a responsibility to make, to the students to make a recommendation to the board. All the language after that has been deleted because of the administrative guidelines. And so that policy became very short.
Thank you, Pam. May I get a motion on the table to approve policy 3231, outside activities of staff? Second?
Second?
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Next, we have 3242, professional growth requirements. Pam?
The law changed 3242. It's called professional development instead of professional growth requirements. So we changed the title. The rationale, the changes in this policy reflect the guiding principles in the strategic plan. So we were recalling what our strategic plan talks about for our professional staff. And so therefore, we added the 2 lines about high-quality employees and effective teaching and learning. And then at the bottom, at the last paragraph, the superintendent shall plan and implement a program of professional development, which is reflecting what we put in the title, for staff.
Thank you. May I get a motion on the table to approve 3242, which will change to professional development, but right now noted as professional growth requirements?
I'll move.
Second?
Second.
Discussion?
I
Yes.
do have a couple questions. Well,
Please.
first of all, a comment to the policy committee. I think it was a really nice job incorporating the elements of the strategic plan. I think that was really a nice touch. And then just a little question here. This policy seems to talk about professional development as it's done and professional growth as it's done within our own district. As far as professional development obtained outside the corporation, is that spoken to more in the next policy we're going to talk about, 3243?
Let me look.
3243 is professional meetings, and that is not necessarily a professional development.
So does this policy we're talking about then, I'm flipping back now, talk about the professional development we do within our own district in a variety of ways, and if someone would go to an outside
Yes.
position? Okay.
It just talks about professional development in general, doesn't necessarily specify where it's going to happen.
Okay, so plan and implement a program could mean
It could be
something
in-house
really
or not
concise.
in-house.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. You kind of threw us there for a moment. I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, let me take a look. So we have done a really nice job within the district of bringing in outside entities to have professional development for us, C4 being one of them. During the course of the summer, that many of our teachers are partaking in that activity, but we also have other programs that Dr. Wall has suggested people take, or teachers have requested and then approved. But that is all really addressed in this particular
Okay, thanks.
policy.
That's what I was wanting to make sure it covered all those bases. So-
Yes. Any other questions? All in favor of supporting policy 3242? Signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you. And last but not least, 3243, professional meetings.
Again, this is a 3,000 policy, so this has to do with the teaching staff. Rationale on this policy is being relocated to the new general category in the renumbering of our policies, and therefore, it will now refer to employees and not just professional staff. So it will be renumbered 0243.
Correct.
And so it will, when it becomes a general policy, now it will refer to just all employees, because we are now encouraging all employees to develop increased competence through attendance at professional meetings. And for purposes of this policy, a professional meeting shall be defined as any meeting that is related to the activities, duties, or responsibilities of professional staff members as determined by the superintendent.
May I get a motion on the table to approve changes to policy 3243? Second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. And we'll move right into discussion. Mr. McMichael?
Thank you. We're proposing that the board discuss the potential sale of $8,160,000 of general obligation bonds. These bonds would be repaid over the next 4 years, so it would be a short-term debt. The purpose of the bonds would provide an offset for additional losses that the district is about to incur as a result of changes in the circuit breaker, which I'll explain further in a minute, and also to provide additional funds to support the recommendations of the Technology Integration Committee. In addition, we would continue to manage our debt service tax rate over the foreseeable future. With regard to the circuit breaker, in the 2017 budget, the district must now anticipate the circuit breaker loss in the current year, in 2017. In past years, our budget would be approved. Then after that, in the spring, we would receive the reduction from the circuit breaker. But since the budget was already approved for the current year, that reduction would be reflected in the following year. And there'd simply be less money than otherwise would be available for the following year. So once you get in that cycle, that's how it was working. But now there's two things that are happening with regard to the circuit breaker. One is the amount of the circuit breaker loss for us has gone from about $1 million to about $2 million. And so we recognized the $1 million, a year ago, and it would have anticipated that in our funding for 2017. And so, but now that increase will be reflected, the additional $1 million will be reflected in 2017, but also we will have to reflect the current year $2 million loss for that year 2017. So in total, the 2017 budget will incur a reduction of about $3 million. And so we're wanting to respond to that through these bonds. And also then the Technology Committee's recommendations, which you heard that report at the last meeting, would require about another $4 million of funding for devices and also upgrading of our wireless infrastructure. So in total, and in summary, the funds would be used for $5.5 million would be for technology devices, and that would include the $1.5 million that we'll need to cut from the 2017 budget. So it would offset that loss, and then it would provide a net of about $4 million of additional funds to support the recommendations of the Technology Committee. In addition to that, then we'll have to reduce about $1.5 million in other areas, and the other area would be in facilities. And so we would another almost $1.5 million of these funds would offset that loss. And then about $1.2 million we would recommend would be used for temperature control replacements at Creekside and Clay Middle Schools. Both of those schools have systems that are now obsolete, and we're having difficulty getting repair parts and so forth. So in total, this would cover those needs. At the same time, as far as the impact of the tax rate, it would have a 3 cent impact to the 2017 tax rate, which would reestablish what our rate was in 2014. Actually, it'd be about a penny less than what the rate was in 2014. Our rate went down in 2015 from about 84 cents to 80 cents. Last year, it then stayed at 80 cents, or this year it stayed at 80 cents. This would bring it back to a total of 83 cents. Now, in this proposal, we're also anticipating future needs, or the possibilities of future needs, and therefore it would also provide, or we would have the ability to sell another $7 million of bonds in 2018, and additional $30 million of bonds in 2020. Now, we know that we can't totally predict the future, but we know, number one, the circuit breaker loss is likely to, unless the rate drops, the overall tax rate for the entire community, our circuit breaker loss will stay about the same. In other words, it won't go back to what it was. It won't be reduced by $1 million in the foreseeable future unless the rate comes down. With regard to facilities, then, we know that both Carmel Elementary and Cherry Tree will be due for major renovations about 2020. The last time those buildings had major work done was in the late 1980s. And so we didn't want to mislead the board or the community. Therefore, we anticipated some additional debt to show that even with that debt, we would still be maintaining our tax rate at about an 83-cent total tax rate, which, by the way, is very enviable in terms of the state and the county. So there's some detail to all of this in a report from H.J. Umbaugh, our financial advisor, that provides what I've summarized in much more detail.
Thank you, Roger. I'm going to open up the floor to questions. I know, Tricia, you sent quite a few questions this earlier today, which I thought were really on point. I appreciate that. If you wanted to ask those again or get a different perspective, please feel free. If others have questions for discussion, please feel free to chime in.
Well, I have them with me, and I basically, and thank you for sending the answers, however that worked out, but Roger just kind of covered some of that actually in the explanation. So it really had to do with getting my mind around and totally understanding, I guess, partially in regard to, since we just heard the presentation of a lot of really neat recommendations with technology and how it really is integrated and how the student and the curriculum works together, but also how we do business with it, and it all kind of builds and grows together to make sure that we plan for those expenses and how that's working out. And you actually just, explained that pretty well. So I just wanted to make sure we are looking in a variety of ways forward, because that's a I wouldn't say multi-phase plan as so much as multifaceted, because it's all very interconnected. So, and then I just want to make sure I understand the kind of the increase, decrease, the slight fluctuation in the tax rate, which I know we're always on the lookout to make sure that that's not hitting our public any harder than it needs to, and it stays pretty stable. And you hit on that too. So thanks.
And I know that I've read this here, but I want to confirm, even with in 2018 as well as 2020, with the additional sale of what we're anticipating additional bonds for our needs in the district, we are going to be able to maintain our tax rate. That is
Yes.
what we've projected currently.
Yes, we have since the general fund is no longer funded with property tax, our funds that are principally funded with property tax are transportation, and transportation has a cap on it, and so that tax rate's essentially capped and managed by a formula and so forth, as is our capital projects fund. That leaves our debt service fund and our, in our case, our referendum fund. And so what you have in the detail from Umball, it shows that as we pay out our debt payments between now and 2024, when at that point, all of our debt will be paid off, by the way. Now, we'll likely need more debt, because when it's paid off, the buildings that money went for, like Creekside and the Freshman Center and so forth, will also be 20-some years old. And but out to that point, we're again, even with this bond, as well as a $7 million bond in 2018 and a $30 million in 2020. And that's not to say that we'll sell those bonds, but we included that in there to show that the tax rate would remain constant and would not increase even with those additional bond sales. So we're not trying to predetermine that we'll need to sell $7 million in 2018, but in the event, but we could, and it would still not raise the tax rate. If we don't, then the tax rate would actually drop. But particularly in 2020, we do know that we'll have two schools that will be coming up on the need for major renovation, and it would be likely that in order to accomplish those projects, we would need bond funding. We wouldn't have sufficient cash from our capital fund to cover a major renovation of those schools. So that is anticipated. The $7 million in 2018 is a number that was plugged in there to show that we had that bonding ability without raising the rate. And so rather than just letting it drop, I purposely included it to demonstrate that we have yet additional funding that would be available without raising the rate.
Thank you. Are there any other questions at this time? And Roger, it's your hope that we will take action on the sale of these general obligation bonds then at our July business meeting?
Yes, we'll recommend action at the July meeting, and included in your report is a detailed schedule of the process of that, of selling the bonds. And if we stay on that schedule, then the bond sale would culminate in a bond sale in early November.
Okay. Yes, go ahead, Pam.
Yes. What do you anticipate the bond rate to be?
I don't have that in front of me, but it's in the detail of the report. I believe it's they've added 1% to what the current rate is as a precautionary measure. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick. I think it's 2.8 or something like that. If I get this attachment here to open up for me.
And when we recently refinanced bonds because the rate dropped, what was the rate then?
I don't remember the rate, but the bonds that we offhand, but the bonds that we refinanced, we saved $5.5 million
Right. So
on that refinancing.
This would be a low rate, obviously, but do you anticipate maybe that happening again, or do we?
Which happening again?
The bond rate would lower and we could refinance. I know you have.
Yeah, I don't.
Open up your ball and find out.
That would be total speculation on my part. We're already at historic lows, so it would be really hard to say. I was trying to see if I could. I've got the rate here. They're showing it somewhere. Let's see.
Oh.
They're assuming a net interest rate of 2.5%. And it says assumes current interest rate estimates plus 1%. So, of course, which would suggest that if the rates now are 1.5, that's a pretty percentage-wise, that's a pretty significant increase, though, to go to 2.5.
Right.
So even with that, so it's based. They're going to be conservative because they don't want to tell us one thing and then have it cost a lot more. So, if anything, I think the cost would be less, not more.
Yes, Mike.
Okay, so I guess while you've got that report open, I just want to flip through to make sure I understand.
Yep.
And I think you've explained it all. Now that have you explained it, I understand it more. So the first exhibit is what our capacity limit is,
Yes.
and then the second is what our current outstanding bond amounts are. And then the third is the proposed use for this 8.1. And then, again, and then projections for 8.1, and then projections for the next two that we may or may not do.
Yes.
And then there's a summary of the tax rates and a couple more. But those first ones, I guess, were my question. So
Yes, and so the last page that you referred to, again, shows the tax rate at going to 32 cents, and then it drops to 29 cents and stays there until 2023, I believe. At the end there, it starts to drop off because all the debt's paying off around 24 and 25. But again, that's the current debt. I mentioned it once, but I think it's worth mentioning a second time, that this bond issue is on a 4-year payback. Oftentimes, bond issues they can be 20 years. But we would never recommend a bond sale for something like technology that has a relatively short useful life over a 20-year period, because you'd be paying off a debt that what you purchased was long gone before you ever paid the debt off. So that was by design, to be sure that we weren't borrowing money to buy an asset that has a relatively short life cycle and then paying it over a long period of time.
Any other questions? One more. Please, go ahead.
And the technology that we're buying is the technology for the teachers plus the proposed technology to put in the buildings for the students. All of that is going to be included in this 1 year or within the next 4 years?
No, not the next 4 years. I don't know if it'll be all spent this upcoming year, but that would be the majority of it. It's really three major components, I would say. One is it does provide a device for all professional staff.
Right.
There's about $2 million of expense to upgrade the wireless network because the equipment won't work without the network being expanded. And then the majority of the balance of it is for devices for students.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Wonderful. Well, moving right along, we have our beverage provider agreement. And to Roger.
Okay,
With that.
just a second. Let me get out of this one here. Okay. So Carmel Clay Schools has had a contract with Coca-Cola Bottling Company for the past 15 years. Those agreements have been in 5-year terms, so that agreement is expiring here in July. And so there are really two companies out there, Coca-Cola and PepsiCo. So we solicited quotations from both companies. Coca-Cola was the best proposal. This proposal provides about $129,000 a year of revenue to the school district. The PepsiCo proposal was about 124, so they were almost 125. So they were competitive, but Coca-Cola we feel is the best proposal. What we have done for now 15 years is not for 15 years. We've had the relationship for 15 years, but in at least the last probably 10 years, and particularly in the last 5 or so, we have followed what's referred to as the Alliance for a Healthier Generation, these guidelines. And those guidelines came into play back in the President Clinton days. And basically what it provides is that we do not sell sugary drinks, so we don't sell regular Coke. We sell, in fact, most of what we sell is flavored water and water, bottled water. But we also sell diet products in terms both like vitamin water and so forth. We make one exception to these ABA guidelines, and that is that we do sell a 12-ounce isotonic beverage at the middle school. The guidelines provide for that at the high school, but not at the middle school. But we have made that exception. However, those 12-ounce products are less than 150 calories. They're in line with state and federal laws, and particularly our food service department, which we have 2 registered dietitians in that department, and they would recommend these as a choice on our a la carte beverage products. And so, in the end, that's what we have done. And so, again, we would recommend this contract at our next meeting. As far as the funds, almost all the money goes back to the schools, and we keep a small amount, percentage of it here to cover things like recognitions and those types of things. The employee breakfast that we have annually, that's an example where we'll use some of the money. The schools then use the money at the discretion of the principal, but I would note at the high school, where the products are purchased by students, they work with the student senate or council because the money has to be spent back on students. And so it's managed by the principal, but those funds are, they're all used toward benefiting students. Only the money that would be like if it was in a teacher's lounge, then the staff would have discretion as to how to use it.
Thank you, Roger. Questions from the board? Discussion? Yes, Mike?
I guess I have 2 questions about the contract itself. One, I'm assuming it's similar to what was signed 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's virtually identical other than the numbers have changed.
Right. And then, so then 2, it's been reviewed by David Day as general counsel.
Previously, this particular one has not.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Great. Well, moving right along, we have our material rental and fee changes. Dr. Dudley.
Great, thank you. This evening, I bring to you for discussion the changes in our material rental and also our fees for the 2016-17 school year. And as you can see from the attached spreadsheet, there are some changes in that we have some continued use in some of our math adoption books, and one of the reasons we have continued use at the elementary and in some of our math courses at the secondary level is, you may recall, or you may not, several years ago we did math adoption in a couple different years because the Common Core was coming in, and we did not have the math alignment piece at the secondary, so that adoption was adopted the year after. So we want to bring them back into alignment. And so we're in the process right now of our math program evaluation, and then we look to adopt next year for all of our math courses. So that's one of the so that's a reduction. And then we had, as you approved, some changes in some materials. You can see the changes on there that are reflected for those new books that were adopted.
Any questions? Comments?
Yes.
Please, go ahead.
Could you please print these just a little bit bigger next time?
If you
Scroll
have,
to the
Hard
bottom.
to see.
if you
Scroll
click on
to
the
the bottom.
plus.
Plus, to the right. To the right. For the right.
Oh, over here. Yeah, do you know how many times you have to do that in order? Anyway, just thought.
I have a question for you, and this has come up a number of different times since I have children going through the middle school. The T-shirts and shorts that they're required to buy and the health strap, can that tied into fees?
It is.
So this now is all fees?
Right now, for the middle school in 6th grade,
Okay.
we did put it into the fees, but only at 6th grade.
Okay.
Because
Because
they
they
all
should have it already.
buy one in 6th grade, but then if they lose their, or they grow out of them, they can buy them at the bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
But we do not put it in the fees at 9th grade because it's the same uniform, so if they don't grow that much.
Or they don't take
And
it.
some kids, right, some kids take it online,
Mm-hmm.
so they may not need a uniform. So we have incorporated it into the fees
Thank you
for
very
6th
much.
grade.
as a parent who sells these, when I volunteer in the work, it's great to have it all tied into one. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. Well then, moving right along, let me get back there. Family and Consumer Science, Advanced Child Development Material Adoption, Dr. Dudley.
Yes. And this evening, also for discussion, I bring to you a new adoption for the Advanced Child Development course. And as you can see, this course is a dual credit course through Ivy Tech. And this is a required textbook that Ivy Tech requires their students to use. And so because our students are taking, and they get that dual credit, we had a committee of teachers that teach this course, as well as administrators review it and determine that, yes, this would be an appropriate textbook for our students, and so they're recommending that this be adopted for our Advanced Child Development course.
Are they adopting this book in lieu of what they've currently been using, or is this going to be in addition to?
This will be within addition.
Okay.
To.
Kathy?
Will this be part of the rental fee, or will they be required to purchase the textbook?
It will be part of the rental fee, and they will do, because they have other materials as well, it would be purchased as a class set, so the rental will not be exorbitant at all. For the whole course, it'll be about $11 for rental.
Yes, it says it's through Ivy Tech Community College. Will those transfer over to other colleges if they go someplace else?
It depends on the college. They would be on, they get an Ivy Tech transcript, and then each university determines, like, for example, at Purdue, many of them are undirected electives, so they transfer, but they don't mean much for a degree. It just depends now, but a student that is doing early childhood, that very much may transfer. It depends on what their major ends up being.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you.
Dr. Walner, turn the floor over to you.
Thank you. I'll put in more detail in my June report to the board on my trip to D.C. with Senator Coates' reps and Senator Donnelly's representatives. Still trying to follow up on some of the information from that meeting, and hopefully have closure to that by the end of the week, but I'll do a more detailed report. Kind of a broad stroke on it. I think it was time well spent. They're still trying to get the regs out of the federal level for ESSA, and they're very optimistic in D.C. that the states will embrace this autonomy. And I talked to some of my colleagues actually last week about it. We're all hopeful they will too, because this is a really golden opportunity for the states to be more actively involved in championing the cause of public education, creating some autonomy that makes sense for assessment and accountability. And it appears like at the federal level, they are, by their own law, restricting their involvement in public education. So we're hopeful and continue to wait for the final regulations on that. There still will be obviously standardized testing. Based upon everything we've heard, it'll be summative testing, but we're looking forward to working with our state legislators if they bring us to the table on that next step with the SSA. But I'll do more detailed with some links to what they gave me, and they're actually hopefully giving me more this week that I can provide to you as well.
Thank you. Board reports? Okay. Well, that's fantastic. Couple things to keep in mind. We have board training July 15th, and everybody's received that information. It is on the board calendar. We just have one regular board meeting in July. It is not on this calendar, or it's not on our report here. And to be honest with you, I don't know if it's the 18th or the 25th. I think it's the 25th. Okay, 25th. Perfect. Thank you. I don't have my personal calendar in front of me, so we've got that on July 25th. If anybody's interested, we've got the C4 conference on the 13th, which is pretty exciting. I will not be there. It's my birthday, and I will be doing other things on that day, but I encourage everyone to attend. With that, unless there is something else we'd like to contribute. Yes, Kathy?
I will be out of town from June 30th through July 8th, and may not be able to be reached because I might be on a ship.
Bummer. Have a great time. We'd like to go too. Have a great time. Okay. With that in mind, meeting adjourned.